When you picture a healthy meal, you probably imagine leafy greens, a handful of nuts, maybe a little fruit or yogurt on the side. It looks clean, colorful, nourishing. But what if I told you that some of the very combinations people call superfoods could be quietly wearing down your kidneys every single day? Not in a dramatic, obvious way, but slowly, silently, until one day your doctor mentions high creatinine on your lab report and you wonder how it happened. I'm Dr. Brian, and welcome to Channel Vital Science for Seniors. I've spent decades caring for older adults who wanted nothing more than to keep their independence and health, yet were blindsided by kidney problems they never saw coming. Today, I'll take you on a journey through surprising food pairings that may feel harmless, but can be a disaster for your kidneys, and more importantly, what you can do instead. Let me start with a story. A woman in her late 60s came to my clinic a few years ago. She was strong, vibrant, loved gardening, and was proud of how carefully she ate. Every morning, she blended a smoothie with spinach, almond milk, and sometimes a sprinkle of yogurt for extra creaminess. To her, this was the symbol of discipline and health. But after a few months, she began experiencing sharp pain in her side, the kind that stops you in your tracks. It turned out to be kidney stones, and the culprit was hidden in her healthy breakfast. Spinach and almonds share something in common. They're both packed with oxalates. Now, oxalates aren't villains by themselves. Your body naturally produces them, and many plants contain them. But think of oxalates like tiny puzzle pieces searching for a partner. When they find calcium in your gut or bloodstream, they lock together, forming crystals. If there's too much, those crystals cluster and harden, turning into stones inside the kidneys. It's like pouring sand into a pipe. Eventually it clogs. To put it into perspective, most people can safely process around 100 milligrams of oxalates per day. But just 1 cup of raw spinach contains more than 650 milligrams. Add a handful of almonds, another oxalate-rich food, and suddenly you've stacked up far more than your kidneys can comfortably handle. You might not feel it immediately, but those crystals slowly accumulate until the pain announces itself. Now let's add dairy into this story. Many people enjoy spinach lasagna, a spinach and cheese omelet, or even spinach salad sprinkled with feta. That pairing of calcium-rich dairy and oxalate-heavy spinach might sound nutritious, but inside your body, it creates the perfect storm. Calcium grabs onto oxalates like magnets, and when the kidneys are forced to filter those bound particles, they risk forming hard deposits. Over time, this constant pressure increases the risk of kidney stones, infections, and even chronic kidney damage if left unchecked. You may be thinking, but isn't calcium supposed to be good for bones? Don't I need it as I age? Yes, calcium is essential, especially for bone strength and preventing fractures in older adults. But it's about timing and balance. If calcium is consumed from lower oxalate vegetables or taken at the right times, it helps the body. If it's combined with high oxalate foods like spinach, it becomes a recipe for trouble. Science backs this up. A study published in the Clinical Journal of the American Society of Nephrology found that diets consistently high in oxalates, particularly when combined with calcium, sharply raised the likelihood of kidney stone formation. What's more, older adults were especially vulnerable since kidney efficiency naturally declines with age. So what can you do? You don't have to give up greens or nuts entirely. You just need smarter swaps. Instead of raw spinach, try steamed kale or romaine lettuce. Steaming reduces oxalate levels by nearly half, making them much gentler on your kidneys. For nuts, swap almonds for pumpkin seeds, which are lower in oxalates but still provide healthy fats and minerals like magnesium, a nutrient that actually helps block oxalates from binding too tightly. If you love adding creaminess to dishes, consider ricotta cheese in small amounts instead of harder cheeses with more concentrated calcium, or simply add cucumber slices for crunch without the oxalate overload. And remember, hydration is your silent ally here. Water helps flush excess oxalates before they have a chance to settle in your kidneys. I often tell patients to think of water as their kidney's broom. It sweeps away the debris before it piles up. The woman I mentioned earlier, she didn't have to give up her smoothies. Instead, she switched her spinach for kale, her almond milk for oat milk, and added pumpkin seeds instead of almonds. Within months, her energy was back, her kidney pain resolved, and she was able to keep gardening without fear. Sometimes it's not about abandoning foods we love, but learning how to rearrange the pieces so they work with our bodies instead of against them. One of the most common surprises I see in my practice is when a patient proudly tells me they've switched to all natural foods, lots of bananas, avocados, and smoothies, because they believe natural always means safe. And in most cases, fruits and vegetables are wonderful. But for people with struggling kidneys, some of these very choices can create hidden dangers. Let's talk about potassium first. Potassium is vital for life. It keeps your heart beating in rhythm, your muscles contracting smoothly, your nerves firing. But when the kidneys slow down, they can't filter out extra potassium as efficiently. That's when something called hyperkalemia occurs. Picture an electrical circuit overloaded with too much current. Wires spark, fuses blow, and the system falters. In the body, hyperkalemia makes the heart misfire, sometimes so badly it can cause sudden cardiac arrest. Here's where bananas and avocados come in. A medium banana has about 422 milligrams of potassium. A single avocado? Nearly 975 milligrams. Alone, they're manageable. But when blended into a smoothie or eaten together, the potassium load can skyrocket past what compromised kidneys can handle. I once cared for a gentleman in his 70s who collapsed after a family brunch of guacamole, banana bread, and orange juice. His potassium level was dangerously high, and his heart rhythm had become unstable. He survived, but it was a close call, all from a meal that seemed perfectly wholesome. Now let's shift to phosphorus, a mineral less talked about but equally important. In healthy kidneys, phosphorus is kept in check. But when kidney function declines, phosphorus builds up in the blood. It doesn't just float harmlessly, it begins depositing into blood vessel walls, stiffening them like old hardened pipes. This process, called vascular calcification, raises the risk of strokes, heart attacks, and bone weakening. Processed foods are loaded with phosphorus, and one of the worst combinations I see is cheese with processed meats like bacon. Cheese carries natural phosphorus. Bacon and deli meats are filled with phosphate additives designed to preserve flavor and shelf life. Together, they deliver a 1-2 punch that overwhelms kidneys. A large study in the Journal of the American Society of Nephrology showed that people with higher phosphate additive intake had a 50% higher risk of kidney disease progression. That's not a small number, it's life-altering. And then there's the modern habit of pairing fast food with cola. On the surface, it's just a convenient lunch, but inside the body, it's like pouring acid on a wound. Cola is made with phosphoric acid, a kidney irritant that strips calcium from bones and forces the kidneys to work overtime. Add that to the sodium and fat in burgers or fries, and you've got a toxic cocktail. I recall a patient who worked long shifts and lived on burgers, fries, and Diet Cola. By the time I met him, his blood pressure was uncontrollable, his creatinine levels were high, and his bone density had dropped. He was shocked to learn it wasn't just the fast food in general, it was the combination of phosphate-rich soda and sodium-heavy meals that had done so much damage. But here's the hope. Small swaps can transform these risks into safe habits. Instead of bananas, reach for pineapple. Sweet, refreshing, and much lower in potassium. Instead of avocado toast, try cucumber slices with hummus or a drizzle of olive oil. If you love cheese, consider lighter options like ricotta or cream cheese in moderation, paired with unsalted turkey slices instead of bacon. For drinks, swap cola for water with lemon or unsweetened herbal tea. One practical tip I always share: read labels carefully. Look for words ending in phosphate. Those are hidden phosphorus additives that sneak into everything from deli meats to sodas. Avoiding them can dramatically lighten the load on your kidneys. The gentleman who collapsed after brunch, he learned to trade bananas for apples and pineapple, kept his avocado portions tiny, and drank more water instead of juice. Within a few months, his potassium stabilized, and his heart was steady again. He still enjoyed meals with his family, but now he chose wisely, confident he was protecting his kidneys instead of unknowingly straining them. The message here is simple: natural isn't always harmless, and convenience often comes with hidden costs. By understanding how potassium and phosphorus work together to challenge weakened kidneys, you can take back control of your health and still enjoy delicious, satisfying meals without fear. If you've ever had a big steak dinner with a glass of wine or beer, you know how satisfying it can feel. Rich, hearty, comforting. But for the kidneys, that combination is like piling heavy weights onto an already fragile bridge. Let's talk about why. Tomatoes are a wonderful food in moderation. They're bright, full of flavor, and rich in antioxidants like lycopene. But they're also acidic and contain oxalates. When you pair them with high-protein meals, like steak, chicken, or even protein shakes, the body ends up with a much higher acid load. Think of your kidneys as firefighters, constantly balancing the body's internal pH fire. Every protein-heavy meal creates more acid for them to extinguish. Add tomatoes, and the flames grow hotter. For healthy kidneys, that's manageable. But in someone with reduced kidney function, the added acid tips the scale, increasing calcium loss in urine, raising the risk of kidney stones, and leaving markers like albumin in the urine, a silent warning sign of kidney damage. I once cared for a woman in her 60s who had switched to a high-protein diet because she'd read it was great for weight loss. Lunch was usually grilled chicken with tomato salad. Dinner might be salmon with roasted tomatoes. Within a year, her labs showed rising creatinine and protein in her urine. She was shocked. She thought she was eating clean. When we adjusted her meals, less protein per portion, swapping tomatoes for zucchini or yellow squash, her kidney numbers stabilized, and she felt her energy returning. Now let's turn to another pairing that quietly wrecks kidneys: red meat and alcohol. Red meat is loaded with purines, compounds that break down into uric acid. Normally, uric acid dissolves in the blood and leaves the body through urine. But with excess intake, or with impaired kidney function, it crystallizes. These crystals lodge in the kidneys as uric acid stones or flare up in joints as gout. Anyone who's experienced gout knows the agony. It feels like shards of glass inside your toes. Imagine the same sharp crystals forming in the delicate filters of your kidneys. Alcohol makes the problem worse. It dehydrates the body, reducing urine volume, so uric acid becomes even more concentrated. At the same time, alcohol raises acid production in the body, doubling the strain. I remember one patient, a retired teacher, who ended up in the emergency room after a night of steak and wine at a family celebration. His kidneys couldn't handle the purine alcohol overload, and he developed an acute kidney injury. He told me later, "I thought it was just one nice dinner. I had no idea it could nearly shut my kidneys down." But again, there's a hopeful path. Reducing the acid and purine load doesn't mean giving up joy at the table. Instead of always pairing proteins with acidic tomatoes, try balancing them with alkaline, fiber-rich foods like quinoa, oats, or squash. These foods act like buffers, easing the acid load and giving kidneys breathing room. If you enjoy red meat, keep portions smaller, about the size of your palm, and balance it with vegetables that are low in oxalates and gentle on the kidneys. As for alcohol, moderation is everything. One drink with a tall glass of water, and only occasionally, is far safer than making it a routine. The woman who loved tomato salads? She discovered that zucchini tossed with olive oil and herbs gave her the same satisfaction. The retired teacher swapped his weekly steak and wine ritual for grilled fish with lemon and sparkling water. Both still enjoyed meals, but without the crushing consequences to their kidneys. Science supports this approach. Research shows that diets lower in acid-producing foods reduce the risk of chronic kidney disease progression and improve overall metabolic balance. It's not about restriction, it's about partnership, working with your body rather than against it. So the next time you think about piling red meat and alcohol onto your plate, or tomatoes with protein at every meal, remember that fragile bridge. Your kidneys can carry you for decades, but only if you don't overload them. Choose balance, give them rest, and they'll reward you with resilience well into your later years. There's one more simple trick I share with nearly all my kidney patients, and it surprises people with how powerful it is. Your kidneys need rest just like your heart and muscles do, yet many of us snack constantly, giving them no break. I call it the 2-hour rule, though in truth it means spacing your meals 4 to 5 hours apart and avoiding late-night snacking. By allowing your kidneys these quiet windows, you reduce filtration stress, balance blood sugar, and improve sleep quality. It's a gift of recovery time, and your kidneys will thank you for it daily. So here's the truth, my friend. It's not only about the foods you eat, but how you pair them together. Spinach with almonds, bananas with avocados, red meat with alcohol. Each seems harmless until you realize the hidden burden they place on your kidneys. But the good news is, you have the power to change this story. With mindful swaps and timing, you can protect kidney function, lower the risk of stones, and keep your independence strong. I'm Dr. Brian, and I believe change is possible at any age. Stay hopeful, stay curious, and keep choosing health every day.